Finally, yay! Sorry, guys, we had some technical issues here, but we are back or here, whatever. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan, and I'm really excited today to be talking about the subject of intuition. And especially in these times, I think it may be the most important ever time to be able to tap into your own inner guide, your own GPS system. I call it anyway, your God positioning system. And so today on True TV, we have an expert in this field of intuition, and her name is Leah Ray. Welcome to the show, Leah, and hi again, Craig.
Hi. Yeah. So I'll just jump straight in. Um, a while ago, I'm going through some seismic scale changes in my life, and I think I'm fairly tuned in, and I can navigate my way with things and stuff, but with things going on in my own personal life, I knew I needed help. I needed something outside of me. Like I need something from someone. So I messaged Tyler Koala from Journey to Truth, and I just said, dude, if you could go to anyone right now for like a reading of sorts or anything like that, who would you go to? Straight away, straight back, Leah Ray, 100%. And he says she's amazing, and you read like akashic records. I mean, I've been on your website. You do a number of things. But what I will say is I had a session with Leah just to help because I needed some help, and it was beyond anything I've experienced in my life before with regards to accuracy. She knew nothing. Leah and I had never met. We didn't even have the screens on. She couldn't even see my face. I couldn't see hers. She didn't know what I looked like. Didn't know anything about me, and the information that came through was sensational. Like helped me in ways that like I couldn't do for myself. Basically, it was incredible. So, Leah, thank you very much for joining us. It's an honor to have you. It's actually really good to see you. You've done a few interviews. You're really coming out there now, and I think that's a sign of where you're operating from. So, yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to get started?
Well, thank you both for having me. I've always been shy with the public eye, but I'm trying to break free from that because I realize some of us need to share whatever we're working with and working on so that others can help themselves or learn how to heal themselves. So I've decided that I'm going to get more public and just kind of go out a little bit more and share just what I've been shown. Because for me, I've always been sensitive as a child. I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't think other people couldn't see ghosts or spirits or colors or auras. Like I would tell my classmates, "Oh, your main aura is green today," or "Your color is 7," or "You're 12," or "You're red and you're 4." And so I thought every child was like that, and so I didn't know until later that that wasn't always the case. Although I do believe we all have the ability. It's just being able to be open to it. But I was blessed because I was able to go on like little adventures on my own and meet shamans and try to do my own spiritual work as a teenager. And I had supportive parents sometimes who would hear me, but then sometimes they couldn't hear me or they wouldn't remember what I would talk about often. So in my teens, it was interesting, but then later in my 20s, it became more difficult because I was seeing stuff, one, I didn't want to see, but then I was also running from it. So I'm sure a lot of people who are sensitive run from their own abilities because they don't possibly know how to turn it off or turn it on or dim it. Like I learned, oh, I can actually sleep at night if I just dim it or if I just turn down the volume. Because, like, I wouldn't sleep at night or I'd dream everyone else's dreams. Relationships were hard because I would feel their pain or suffering, or I would just know things about them that they would get scared or they thought I was a stalker. And I was like, no, I promise I'm not a stalker. I just get all these hits and intuitive guidance, or I would see their grandmother who passed, or so it was very hard because a lot of people around me didn't speak this language. And so I tried to run from it. I drank too much. I tried to stop my gifts. And then I was sad because I did stop them for a few years, and I was really heartbroken because I missed them. And then thankfully, I decided to do more work. But during this whole period, I was always doing energy work from a young, like teenager to now still. But I would take classes because I didn't know, because I could see colors or I could see, let's say, gray around somebody. But I didn't know that I was allowed to, if they gave me permission, to help clear the gray or clear the energy that wasn't serving them. So I took a lot of classes. I did past life regressions. I read millions of books. When I was a teenager, I read about Edgar Casey, who I would practice, and I would put my books next to me at night so I could try to absorb the information like he did. So I was just like, oh, and I remember praying and saying, may I please have gifts like that so I could be of service to others. And in a long journey, I eventually, ironically, bumped into someone that said, I'm getting a message that you need to go to this class. Look at this woman's website. And I literally was like, okay. I looked, and she was holding an akashic record reading class 10 blocks from my apartment in Miami. And I never could usually get my shifts covered where I worked. But that weekend, miraculously, I got them covered, and I was able to meet a beautiful woman who was teaching the classes, and I sat for 3 days. I was nervous because I didn't read her books. And I was like, oh, I've always been a hands-on person where I would dive in and then read the book after because I didn't want anything to influence, or I didn't want my subconscious to be like, well, this was already there, you know? So I'm glad I didn't, because when I was there, I was a little bit nervous because I was like, what if it doesn't work? What if I do it wrong? And then all this beautiful energy showed up and all these beautiful messages. And I was just so grateful because it allowed me an on off switch. And it allowed me to really share stuff with someone that I didn't know them. I didn't know any of the classmates. I didn't know anything about anyone. And I was grateful. And it was more one on one where I sat with the person and I would open their records. And I tried that for years because I didn't charge people for this for years because I wanted to hone in on my skill. I wanted to make sure I was getting the information correctly. So for years and years, I would practice. And then finally, I was getting so drained because I would do stuff that I didn't know maybe wasn't the best thing to do. Because I also learned how to clear entities. I also learned how to like clear houses and all that sort of stuff throughout my many years of work. But I realized there were easier ways where I didn't have to sleep for 2 days after. Or like go to the ocean and clear myself because I was living in Miami Beach. So I was able to have the access to the ocean, which was my healing sanctuary. And so, but I was getting drained, and I had to learn how to not allow myself to like be on empty after each session. So it's been a long, beautiful road. It hasn't been easy just because I, tried to run from so many things, and I realized I just have to face my fears. But even with some records, I don't, like you said, I learned that it's okay to not read with the video on, because for me, it's so draining, or I would get caught up in somebody's expression because when I'm reading, it's coming through me. So I don't know anything. I just share what's being shown because it's visual for me. And if I say something, like I remember saying something about a girl that I was taking a class with, and she was wondering why her health was so, she struggled for her whole life. And she lived on a farm as a child. And they said, well, the well water was contaminated when you were 4, and another time when you were 7, because the surrounding farm was experimenting with some pesticides. And the shock on her face was so intimidating to me. And I was like, oh no, maybe that's not accurate. So then I started questioning. So I spent like 5 minutes asking, is this proper? Is this correct? So it was kind of a good lesson for me. But I realized, you know what? I'm not being 100% clear if I have to see their expression constantly. So that's why I just do it. I usually like to sit outside in nature and or with my animals and just read while they're around me. And for me, I just get visuals and I just share what's being shown. And then I'm always asking permission, like, am I allowed to share this? Because some of it's heavy, especially when it's ancestral stuff or if it has to do with suicide. I always ask, am I allowed to share that? Because some of it's heavy. And so, as an example, last month, I had a girl that she only had one other reading from somebody else before me, and she was taken aback by what was being said. And I said, and she said she was very upset because it wasn't great information, but she already knew the information. They just shared that a relative that had been triple boosted or all that stuff had an accelerated cancer. And she was just very angry at me the following day because she didn't sleep and she was just upset with the information. And so I said, I'm so sorry. I can't filter what's being said. I'm not allowed to filter whatever's being shown to me. I always have faith that they're showing it for the person for a reason. And therefore, I can't, like, I'll ask, is this okay? And I'll get a yes or a no, but I just have to share. So anyway, I told her, sorry, I just can't work like that. And, but maybe somebody else will be more suitable for you. And she reached out last week and she's like, I'm so sorry, I just wasn't ready. But she asked for another reading. And I had to go into my guides to ask, is this okay? Am I allowed to work with her? Because I want to be pure with the information, but I also don't want people to suffer at the same time. So I don't know if that's way too much information, but that's that's a little bit about what I do.
That's beautiful. Have you got
That's
anything to
awesome.
add, Sharnael?
That's awesome. No, I understand the part about. I mean, we have similar background. It's kind of cool to meet somebody. I had a kind of similar thing, and then my teacher ended up being Bob Jones, and I was working also. And then it was like everything simultaneously worked out to be there. And then it was, and I'm like you too. I don't read the books in advance. I didn't know why, but the way you explained it was really cool about like not being influenced or whatever, just being surprised. But that's how I've always kind of jumped into is like this. I'd like to go in, so I want that to be my first experience or presentation and then read after or whatever. And then I like what you said about not seeing the face because that does influence because I read body language and if you say something and then they kind of make a face or something, I wouldn't want it to change my direction of where I'm going or try to interpret it differently or try to make it different. You know what I mean? I don't know, Craig, because you're pretty prophetic as well. And I know that.
Pathetic was that?
What's that?
Was that? Did you say pretty pathetic?
Prophetic. Yes, yes. But Bob would always say, not to act, like only to give what you see and not try to interpret it because let's say I see mashed potatoes and to me that means like something home or something, comfortable at home and reminds me of my parents or my grandparents or whatever. Well, that could be like something completely different to somebody else. So my interpretation could actually take away from what it means or whatever. But I just love this. This is so cool. So when did you start like doing public, like charging and, getting out there? Because you said you were kind of doing it for free and just
Yeah.
practicing and working with your friends. But when did it kind of move into, you know what, I think this is my call and I want to help as many people? Like, how did you transition to that?
Well, ironically, my dad was always a great supporter of me where I could tell him pretty much anything and he would remember it. My mom, I would tell her, she'd forget it the next day, which is fine. But he was always telling me, Leah, you're sensitive. He would say, he would call me psychic. And for some reason, that word for me would always be like, I don't know why, but it was like a little bit of a turn off, like, no, I'm not. And I would kind of rebel a little bit. And even though I I would have dreams that would come true, down the road or a few days later, I could see in advance. And I had to embrace it. And he was always supportive of like, let me help you get a website. Let me help you do this. Let me help you do that. So about 8 years ago, he had a stroke. And which was so fascinating because he was like literally, he was sensitive like me, but he wasn't allowed to express it in his household. Whereas with me, I was allowed to tell him stuff that I couldn't really talk to about any of it, to except some of my teachers or shamans. And so I think I took the class about 10 or 11 years ago. So then, and I was always in the healing arts, like massage therapy, esthetician, like energy work. I studied healing beyond borders or healing touch. It's the same thing. But anyway, I studied every thing I could possibly study because I was trying to figure out how to help people. And maybe my one tool would work out of my toolbox, but another one wouldn't. So, but when my dad had this stroke about 8 years ago, I literally said, it's time, because he couldn't speak proper. And so I was like, well, let me open, and I would ask him permission because he'd always let me practice like past life regression on him. I could open his akashic records because he would ask me to. But when he had the stroke, I would ask him, can I open your records? Because I want to know what you need. And he would say yes. And then I was able to find out all the stuff that he needed that he couldn't verbalize. And then after that, I said, okay, it's time, because it's going to allow me time to spend with my dad, that I don't have to be in working, 9 to 5 or whatever in the matrix realm. So it was a blessing in one end and, difficult in another, but it just finally said, I have to do this to help others. And that's when I had paid other people to do my website. No one would show up, or they would kind of disappear. And I was like, this is interesting. And then I realized, because I opened my own records, and I was like, why? And they said, because it has to be your fingerprint. It has to be your energy. And for me, I just wanted nature on my website. I didn't want anything else. And then a friend said, well, you need to put your face, because people need to identify with your eyes and see if you're safe. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So it organically showed up, but it was also, especially during the lockdown, that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to start doing more interviews, because I realized so many people were hurting, and it was just a sad time for so many people. But I wanted to make sure, because I would get energy information without opening people's records, but I would want to tap in and say, is this the right information? Because I got a lot of energy about how to help people heal naturally. And I researched always whatever they said, it was, a lot of it was naturopathic energy of like, you can heal or prepare yourself with herbs, or they would say you need to do a colon cleanse, or who knows, there were so many things. But whenever they would say something, I remember one woman asked about her hot flashes, and they said, you need to start drinking, I think it was watermelon, or maybe rhubarb. I can't remember now, but I would write it down, and I would research on PubMed after, or some of the naturopathic sites, to say, what is this good for? What is watermelon good for? What is rhubarb good for? And then it would say, oh, hot flashes or menopause. And I was like, oh. So it was a nice way for me to confirm the information, because I would always say, listen, I'm not a doctor, but these are your guides sharing with you how to best help you. I'm just the messenger.
Yeah. That's something I wanted to get into, actually, was so obviously when I had my session, because you have like a protocol that you go through, like you say a prayer and then you tap in, sort of thing, and you are connecting to kind of like the team or the guides of the individual. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they start showing you things. Now, obviously, in my session, it was very, very metaphoric, symbolic, but it completely and utterly related to. I mean, I could interpret it straight away. Is that how they always communicate, like in that way? through metaphor, that sort of thing? Or do you ever get anything that's like completely material and literal?
Oh my gosh, great question. Because I think it's all about the person's personality. Like it's really funny because sometimes they'll use words that I don't really use in my vocabulary, and I'll research and I'll make notes. I don't remember the session within about an hour or two after, so my mind's completely wiped. But I think my mind's been wiped like now every day, so I'm just in the present moment. But I do make notes on funny stuff or stuff that I was like, oh, I don't use that term. I think I was reading for somebody in Ireland or England where I was like, oh, I don't really hear this term. Is that something you use often? They're like, oh yeah, I use that on my, the daily.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with if somebody's like uses a lot of symbology, or sometimes nature shows up for some people. And I find out that they take nature walks every day in the wood, or certain animal spirits for some people show up. And we all have our animal guides or the power animals too. But there are some people that have it more than others, or they're more in tune with their own messages from either Mother Earth or the nature spirits, or even their loved ones that pass over. So like like you had mentioned earlier about you may not know what mashed potatoes means, but somebody else, like I literally read for a girl and she just lost her sister the day before. And she called me and she had her whole room full of people. So it took me a little longer than normal to center because I wasn't used to opening for so many people. It was really, I was reading for more the sister, but the whole family was there. So it was a little staticky at first. And then all of a sudden the sister showed up and was showing a pool in the backyard, like a baby pool, it was weird. It was like, or a doggy pool. And the sister started crying, and so I had no idea why. That, I was like, I don't know, it's a baby pool, and she's showing like lots of splashes and just kind of laughing and having drinks. And the sister was like, we used to do that every day in the summer, and the message was for her to continue doing that because the sister's going to be there in spirit. But for me, how would I know what the baby pool meant? I had no idea, but for her, it was a really strong message because I think they had also been sitting in the pool like 2 days before she passed. So it was all beautiful because I don't know. And part of me too, I don't want to know because the less I know, it's actually better. I mean, I'll make notes of what people want to focus on because some people are like, I need to focus on my marriage, or I need to focus on a career or my dog, whatever it is. And I'll make sure we focus on that. But with their specific information, it's just fun because I am opening up to it. I get to see it, but then I get to like forget it. So it's not mine. It's not meant for me. So it's really nice because some are more pleasant than others just because we all have our journey. Sometimes we have fun and joy, and sometimes we have sadness and pain. So it all depends on what someone's going through.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
I was curious because of the times that we're in, especially, and probably everyone said this 10 years ago, and then the next year and the next year, like every year seems more important or more,
significant,
heightened. Yeah. What do you suggest for people? Because I know, everyone has their own practice of like how to actually hear for themselves, because part of what Craig and I have started this whole channel for is to help people go within and to hear for themselves and to know for themselves and to know truth and to have the courage to not have to look at everything on the outside for us to go inside, but to go within and to make those changes, personally, if needed, and or just to get clarity on maybe direction or whatever. Like what would be some beginning steps that you would suggest for people just generally to actually hear that inner voice, or if that's audible. I know some people see pictures, some people are more audible. There's like the seer type where there's visions, there's dreams, and then there's like even smell or a knowing, like just in your gut. I know some people are very like, oh, I just knew he was a bad guy, or I knew that she was cheating on her husband. And it's not like they saw it or heard it, but it was just like dropped in, like they knew it and they didn't know why they knew it. So there's all these different ways to tap in, or I should say, all these different ways to know or hear or see, or all the different ways. But like, how do you fine tune that? And how do you suggest other people fine tune that?
Well, people have written books on like the clairs, so clairsentient, where you feel, claircognizant, where you just know, clairvoyance, where you see. So, for me, I had thankfully just known as a young child that things would come in as patterns for me or colors. And so, or I would get a hit in my stomach. So those were my intuitive hits. Like literally, I would meet, unfortunately, like murderers, and I would know immediately who was a murderer because of by being around a few. It would be the most. It was almost like I wanted to vomit right away. So those are also for me to learn. You cannot deny this because it was so overwhelming. And thankfully it didn't happen often, but when it did, I was like, whoa. And I was like, okay, let me honor this. So for a lot of people, I see it as clearing out the static energy. Like when I open up to people's energy, if there's a lot of static energy around them, they're usually suggested to go outside. And we all have like electromagnetic fields bombarding us right now, right? Through just all sorts of stuff, or phone, media, whatever. A lot of us don't have, like, I think it's called the Faraday cage, where you put your electronics in the cage so you don't get hit. Some of us are more sensitive to others. Like for me, I'm very sensitive to that. So I have to go out in nature. A lot of people have to go out. Like for one person that I read for, actually, he was in my class for when I learned the akashic. He had a past life of being electrocuted many by his family, and his energy in this life was so staticky. And he was getting, anytime he got information, it would like literally hurt his mind. So he was suffering migraines, he was suffering, but his aura wasn't strong. So he was told to literally go out and lay down on the earth and ground and kind of roll around on the earth so that he could ground, so that his aura would become strong. They also said he needed to start swimming because his aura needed to get stronger. And when he moved the energy throughout his body, it would literally kind of cause like a little bit of a pillow of energy that would be like a cushion, so that he wouldn't get hit by all this electromagnetic frequency around him. Some people are told to use crystals, but from what I've noticed is nature's the easiest way. Even if you just go outside and like walk, a lot of people that have a thin aura that need to create a stronger one, they're told to either hug a tree or put their spine along a tree so that it can keep them strong. Some are told to actually drink certain high vibrational foods like chlorophyll, spirulina. Those are very popular for people who are feeling weak. But a lot of time it's really literally movement, being outside. If you can't be outside, then you listening to ocean waves or birds or some sort of nature. Nature is so healing. Nature is the most healing, in my opinion. But if you can't go outside, really like having a waterfall wash over you with energy, with love, with light. There's easy ones if you're bedridden, but essential oils, high grade essential oils, can bring you into a high frequency right away. Frankincense, rose, neroli, myrrh, like ancient ones are true. Yeah. So like I literally have a spray of essential oils because for me, going to the grocery store is difficult for me. So I have to spray, I have to clear. Literally, you can, I always call on God. I ask God. I've used the armor of God often, but I also just align my energy with God's energy, universal energy, creative energy, love, however you express it. But to align your energy with love and light and source, you can actually feel stronger. Your whole energy shifts. For me, vibrational food is important. So structured water for me is really important. So I use like 9.5, but if you don't, like putting a spearmint or any sort of mint in your water to give it a structure is beautiful. If I don't have that, I use medical grade frankincense. Yeah, I use medical grade lemon lime because the essential oil for me, it clears my cells, but it clears other people's cells. We are full of plastics, nanoparticles, unfortunately. So the citrus, if you get a medical grade citrus, like a lemon or a lime or any sort of orange, that will help clear out the plastics that are in our body. So I found that, and again, you can pray and reset your own body and with prayer, well, like the hands-on. So if you're not eating, let's say you don't have access to organic foods or high vibrational foods, if you pray and say a prayer of please allow this food, thank you for the food, please allow it to give me nutrients and love and heal my body. You can do that with anything. I know it sounds silly. Like, of course, I wouldn't suggest fast food every day, but if that's your only choice, literally the prayer over it and asking it to heal your body will really bring you right into that source energy.
Mm.
And so people who meditate or do the past life regression, or I do QHHT as well, quantum healing hypnosis, their higher selves come in and answer their own questions. I just get to facilitate. But they literally say simple answers like, if she or he just wants to receive the love of that food, or if they want to heal themselves, they can. They just have to accept the healing. I've always been told to open your heart to receive the healing and then allow the healing to, it's basically, and so it is, it's done. Those miracles can happen. It's just you have to really be in alignment and ask for it, but also receive it, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Mm. Definitely. And I love, again, I don't know your kind of spiritual beliefs or anything like that, but Sharnael and I come from very Christian backgrounds, and it always makes me smile. Like for example, what you just said about praying over your food. So, when I was at school, I went to a Christian school. We would say grace before we ate. As a kind of a practice. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. It was just talking to God before we ate because it was a religious thing to do. But the root of a lot of these kind of rituals and things that we used to do has a very powerful application to it. Like when you bless your food, you are literally, like you just said, and it's just comes to me now. It's brilliant. You're literally releasing whatever your body needs through that food. And I don't practice that now. I don't pray over my food at all. So that's something I'm going to consider now. But something that because of that, Chanel and I have really sort of like we like to push the boundaries and see where people are at and things like that. We hear a lot of people talk about in this community the akashic records. So I have my view, but what is your view on what are the akashic records? I mean, I know that could be a massively loaded question, but to you, what are they, and what do they look like?
Well, oh yeah, because I'm visual, but for me, how it shows up for me is some people see a library. In the beginning, I would see this long corridor with a library energy. And then I would just get visuals. So like people's guides usually bring me right to the space where we need to work on right away. So that could be past life, it could be a younger version of themselves, it could be yesterday, it could be today. Usually, for me, it's the soul's, it's a library of the soul, meaning whatever energy that soul has gone through. Time, of course, is hard to explain. So let's just keep it in the easy way of past, present, future. So the journey of the soul, if you've had many, many, many past lives, or if you're in parallel lives right now, it will show up in that akashic records of that soul. So a lot of people think they only reincarnate in their one DNA lineage or their family's DNA. And what's been shown to me is no, a lot of souls have gone through many different families or even animal families because they wanted to experience what it was like to have that specific family lineage or the karma. And so it's really interesting, especially when it comes to faith. Some people are really strong in their faith in this life, but in the previous life, they were of a different faith and they were really strong in that faith. So they had to learn all the different spectrums of it. So we all have different journeys, but what it feels like to me and what it's shown to me is I go up there because it feels like I'm going somewhere. I asked myself, and I believe it's either the 11th chakra or the 13th chakra where a lot of the energy is stored. And it's really just almost like this. I know it sounds silly to say it in this way because I don't mean to disrespect it, but it feels like this huge database of just beautiful information. Some people say it's like this huge computer, but it's like this beautiful quantum energy of just storage of information. So I have read for people where they have seen storage of ancient wisdom in the earth and stored in a record and on a sacred place on the earth where certain people can have access to that information. And that makes sense in my brain because if you study different shamans or healing people, tribal people where the healer has access or can ask the plants, what can you do? How can you heal this person? What do I need to do to help this person heal? And the plant will say, boil me for 3 days and add this berry on the third day, and on in the moonlight add another plant, and then this will heal the person. So this is all information that it's like, gosh, so I believe the earth has its own records and the soul has its own specific records. So I feel that's what I'm tapping into when I open up to someone's information, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I find it really interesting. You say you see these sort of like a library, because I've heard numerous people in numerous belief systems.
That's what I
Yeah,
was just going to say.
go on, Sharnael, go on.
I was just, I think we were like communicating telepathically. Paul Keith Davis, right? Like
Yep,
he wrote a
yep.
whole book about that, and of course he didn't call it that, but
Mhm.
I mean, this is years and years and years,
The
like
Libraries of Heaven is what he called it. Yeah, yeah.
decades ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Hmm. Hmm.
Interesting.
This is
But
what I mean. So this is why we like to explore these things, because one group or belief system can call it one thing and another group call it something else, but you're saying the same thing. And we've discovered, like, we're all on the same page. We're all one. We're all seeing the same things. We just might call things different. And there's a real unity forming between beliefs, faiths, all this, whatever you identify with or whatever. And we're all coming together and finding each other. And it's a beautiful time to be alive. And yeah, I just find that really fascinating because something I think is we know we have a free will. We know we have choices to make. We know, but there seems to be this tension between what's predestined for me to walk in and what choice do I have in that. That's a massive question. Would you have an answer to that? Does that make sense? Could you answer that question at all?
Oh my gosh, say it one more time. Sorry, I was reading.
So we have free will,
Yeah.
allegedly, but we've got choices to make in this life, and there seems to be this tension between what is written, say, in our books or in the records. What choice do we have in that? Can we mess it up?
Oh, 100%. So, and that's an excellent question because I've asked that too. Because I was like, because energetically, I usually try to explain before each session for people who are new to working with me. I always say, and which again, it's hard to say past, present, future because time is an illusion, right? But just to make it life simple, I always say, well, we can dive into past lives, we can dive into present experiences, but if you want to ask about future experiences, I always mention that you have free will. These are usually optional for you to either go in that direction. Sometimes some of us need to know what's available for us to go and head in that direction, to even have a light shine towards that energy. And I did have someone recently say, you read for me 5 years ago and I didn't know half the stuff that was coming out of your mouth. But then I listened to it again the other day and the guides were saying all of these things that I was going to do, because she was an artist, but she was doing like a different job that wasn't allowing her to express herself. And apparently her guide said, you're going to be working with woodwork, and you're going to be doing all these different beautiful pieces, and you're going to be at fairs. And 5 years later, it showed up. It didn't show up a week later. It showed up 5 years, and I wouldn't even have known because I don't remember the session, but she saved the session, and she's like, I'm actually doing exactly what they were saying. I'm just doing it now. And so what I find too is I believe in divine alignment, where if you ask for something and that's what you really want and you're heading in that direction, usually I feel there's this beautiful energy that's so much stronger than us or so much wiser that they're going to coordinate it in the perfect divine timing. It might not be my timing. I may want it now, but they may be aligning it in such a beautiful way that I was like, gosh, had I received that 3 years ago when I really wanted it instead of now, I wouldn't have learned all those beautiful lessons, or I wouldn't have met all these people that I needed to meet. So, and that's when I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so small, because there's such a grandeur. It's just a beautiful. It's so hard to explain, but there's such this infinite wisdom out there that I, I feel like a little grain of sand in the whole universe. But if I can tap into something tiny, a little tiny bit of it, I'm just honored and grateful. But I think that's what we do have. I've read for people where they were creating karma that wasn't going to serve their future self. So that's where their inner free will, let's say, was causing, I see it as kind of causing a ruckus for their future self. Whereas if somebody, I've met a lot of people that are trying to heal ancestral karma, and by them doing the work on a continual basis of praying and giving thanks and honoring the ancestors and trying to be a higher version of themselves in whatever way that looks. Usually it's just creating a lot more higher positive vibration around them, but also what it shows is their ancestors are giving them thanks because it's healing that ancestral lineage. And as far back as it goes equally as far into the future. So it's literally like healing this beautiful spectrum. And so that's why I was raised Catholic, and I as a young kid I didn't understand what I ran from it because I didn't understand it. And I tried to explore all these other energies and Buddhism and all these other. And now that I'm opening the records almost on a daily basis. I'm so honored and grateful that I had a little bit. I don't have a lot of Catholicism in my background because I didn't read the books. I didn't do all the practices, but I'm so honored that in the Catholic faith, saints are,
They're honored.
they're honored. And I've been blessed because when I open to people's records, I'm honored because I've been in the presence of saints, and I don't know who they are a lot of times, but when I ask, I get to research. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for allowing me and this person to meet you. And thank you for your message, because I get to learn. I'm so silly in my knowledge of any of it. But when I am humbled to the point of, wow, I don't know anything about you, but I'm going to learn. And certain people that pray and ask for guidance from certain saints, the saints are there. The energy's there to help us. They loved usually to help us because it's honoring them and they get to honor us in return. So they feel acknowledged and we get to feel their presence. So it's a beautiful exchange of energy. And so that's when it does make a difference, I feel, to pray in whatever way you want to. Hopefully it's for love and light, because there are people out there that don't pray to that and they pray to other energies. And I've seen that. And that, for me, it's an icky feeling that I don't ever want to experience. But unfortunately, it's in my line of work. I have to sometimes. So, yeah, so it does make a difference. It does make a difference of who you pray to, how you pray in terms of what you're calling in. if you want chaos and self-destruction, there are energies out there for that. But if you want love and peace and a freedom of feeling the heart chakra open for human energy and animal energy and plant energy, that's also available. So that's where I go because that makes me feel so much better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that even if we don't pray, well, so it depends on, okay, so prayer, and by definition, just your thoughts.
Yeah.
They say pray without ceasing. We kind of are all the time.
Yeah,
And so by default, if we're not directing that, we're going to get chaos anyway if our default is on a negative. So prayer is happening whether we think that it is or not. I love that you talked about the saints and what have you, because in the Catholic, especially I think in the Catholic religion, saints are a big deal, or maybe the deal. Besides
yeah,
Mary. Well, I guess Mary would be kind of a saint-ish too. Um, and in the Christian religion, which I'm not saying Catholic isn't Christian, I'm just saying it's a little bit different. I don't know, whatever.
Protestant, Catholic, and all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's more, Jesus, Holy Spirit, God, and then there's angels. And so for me, guide, and people saying spirit guides, it was a little triggering for me. And initially, when I kind of like went a different path, even hearing that, it was like what the hell? Like what is guide? But
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
think about guide could be, your past loved ones, or your angels, or if you believe that you have guardian angels, or I don't personally practice mediumship, meaning I don't like conjure up the dead and try to talk to them and get answers, kind of thing. That in my practice, I feel like that's a no. I'm not saying that that's a no for any of you, but I will say many times without trying, of just being in my bedroom or whatever, my uncle has showed up at the end of the bed to tell me something that was like pivotal. Or I worked with a little girl named Victoria who was like 4, 5, 6 years old, and she had had a near death experience. And when she came back, she would see all these little kids in rooms that had been passed. And she wasn't sitting there going like, "Dear God, please let me see dead kids so I could talk to them." She didn't even know. Like she was, and she would get these messages from the kids, and the kids would tell them, how they passed. And the mother would like look up, Michael so and so died in a car accident on this day, blah blah blah, and lo and behold, red car, like everything would be exactly what the kid said. And she actually saw two of my children that have passed, told me what they look like, told me their names, which are very kind of weird, different names. Serafina, the girl couldn't even say it. She said, Shiloh is, one of them, and another one is a big name that's kind of hard to say, but we just call her Sarah. I mean, I lost it because I was just like, okay, you got my attention. She was 6 years old and telling me about my children who had passed. So, I absolutely do believe in gifts. Kyron had put in the message, can I get to know what my inner guide wants me to know? I believe we're all born with that. That's just my
Yeah.
personal. I believe everybody has the DNA and the technology to be sensitive, to tap in. I really strongly encourage everybody to do all the things that she suggests and any other things to be able to have that heightened gift. And I believe that, you know, before technology, before all of this stuff, there was probably way more practice in telepathy and, that kind of stuff. Or, because we didn't have cell phones to talk to whoever in the forest who was hunting to try to, get back to their parents, or their, you know, wife that day or whatever. It's like when we were cavemen and whatever, it was just like, this is it. We have the forest. And I actually, we did a show with Derek and his wife, and we were talking about even the whispers of nature, and not in a sense of like just because it's clearing us to hear, but actually hearing them talk, because there is a sound and there's technology to even hear them sing and what they're saying. And so there's a lot coming up, there's a lot coming out. And to answer people's questions, yeah, we all have the gift. It's just about learning how to. And I really, really, really believe, cannot stress this enough, that we should rely so much more on those gut feelings. And not that we can't use an outside source, but sometimes that can kind of even get in the way. And sometimes it's a great thing to do, especially if you're in a situation and you're like, you know what, I need some outside help. And I have done that. I have asked for help, and there was a couple people here who are asking how can they connect with you. So we're wrapping up here. How can people connect with you? And then Craig, I don't know if you have any final words or things to add before we end, but
I think that's a good opportunity, like you say, because I went to Leah. I've never done anything like that before, never done anything since, and I would highly recommend it if anybody needs that. It was just, again, it was like straight in, bang, exactly what I needed, and we had an hour session of just tapping in, and it was just incredible. Again, highly recommend. So yeah, Leah, please tell people where they can find you and get in contact.
Thank you. So I have a website. It's called Leah Ray Light, LeahRayLight.com. And I usually have it so that you just book time, because we can work with whatever you want to work on. I usually just ask if you'd like to focus on something specific or if you want to see what the guides have to say, and then you can guide it however you'd like. There is like a protocol where I say a prayer of protection, and then I take a minute or two to tap in. I need the person's full name. So if they've had multiple names in their life, I always just use all of the names, because sometimes we hold energy in names that we sometimes need to clear or we need to heal from. Trauma is a fascinating energy, but it's always great to be able to let things go or learn the lesson, not hold on to that lower vibrational, whether it's fear, anger, whatever it is, but to learn the lesson and move on. So I have it set up where you can purchase time. And then some people get intuitively feeling like it's time for me to get a session. I've worked with people on weekly basis because it's more like a therapy for them, kind of like I don't know. It's more like, how cognitive therapy for some people works great. Like sometimes people need a little bit more. So everyone has a different expectation. Some people work with me weekly, monthly, yearly. Some people just say it whenever I feel the nudge. But it's usually always amazing. It's for me, it's a sacred time. So I always ask that people stay in a safe place where it's quiet. If they can always ask questions, that they write down questions that they want answered, or if that's not your thing, we'll just jump up there and see what is being said, and then the person can use the time. But I also ask permission to do energy work, because I like to check in on the chakras. I do an energy scan of the body, because I just know sometimes we need extra help. I call on my people when I need extra help. If I've traveled and I haven't cleared myself, or if I have an energy around that's not serving me, I always sometimes need extra help from my friends, because for me, it's easier to work for other people and with other people than on my own self. So that's just how it is. But yes, you're right. We all have the ability. I'm going to eventually try to teach people how to tap into their own records, because I want people to feel empowered. We all have this ability. It's a gift that we all have access to. So I just want people to feel and know that, because it would help us tremendously, I think, as a collective, just human experience on this earth.
Right. And that was actually something I was going to suggest, actually, that have you ever thought about doing some sort of course or, activation where people can tap in for themselves? So you've just answered my question. And Sharnael just put it on the comments there. You're going to join us this Sunday for a members chat. Now,
Oh yeah.
to make clear, it'll be more of a discussion, like the way you work. There's a protocol with regards to tapping in. So, like if people need readings, they need to contact you, themselves. But we're going to have an open discussion. You can get that connection and see what. Just go with the flow in the members meeting on Sunday. Is that cool? Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. And I'm really looking forward to it. Like I say, you've helped me tremendously. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't remember, but thank you.
Yes, and we're also just a Q&A. So if you guys have specific questions that you didn't get to ask today, we're going to allow you guys to actually interact with her and talk with her personally during that time. So it'll be noon. What is today? It'll be the Sunday, the 22nd.
22nd. Yeah.
And it's noon Central. So we are very, very excited and honored, and it'll be an hour as usual. And if you're not a member yet, you can be a member. It only costs $4.99 a month, and there's a lot of different shows that we don't do public that are in our members group, as well as discounts, and we do giveaways and lots of fun things. So that little bit of $4.99 really helps us to keep like graphics and production and all the things that we do. Trust me.
Pay for my gold-plated Bentley as well. Don't forget that. I've got my gold-plated Bentley outside as well. That needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. We got to make sure that we keep up with my Tesla and his Bentley.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, but thank you again, Leah. And you guys can find me at drsharnael.com. If you're interested in joining, I'll put the links in here for you guys to join for us. Even if you just do 1 month and hang out with us for a month, then you could just do that too. You don't have to do it monthly. You could just pick and choose. Of course, we'd love to have the consistency, but next month we're going to have, what's his name again? Stephen Harefield.
Stephen Harefield, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about having him, Metaphysical Bible, and we're going to talk about karma. So we always have like a special guest, and I'd love to have any of you guys who are interested join us. But yeah, find me at drsharnael.com, and we're here every Thursday at noon, and we have really cool shows coming up, so you guys stay tuned. And where do we find you, Craig?
Yeah, so I'm very much in music mode at the moment. Just finished the UK tour with this band 10. Obviously, I'm wearing the t-shirt now. I'm going into the studio in October, probably. It depends. To record a couple of albums. So my head's very much in that. I'm in another band, Ascension. You can check us out on Facebook, and we've got albums online, on streaming sites and things. Usual socials. Craig Martin Walker is my main profile. If people want to make contact. I have a meditation music channel if people are interested on YouTube. Craig W. Ascension Meditation. I've not done one for a while just because I'm so busy with other things, but I endeavor to make more sounds on that. I just like big soundscapes, and it really is just for my own my own benefit, really, but I put it out there because people seem to like it, and if anybody wants to use them for their meditation or their quiet times, or just create an atmosphere in the home, it's there for you. So yeah, check them out. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks you guys again, and if you could leave a comment, tell me where you're from. I'd love to hear and see where you guys are from, and share this, like it, all the things for algorithm. See you guys next week. We're really excited, or see you Sunday. I hope to see you Sunday. It's going to be a fun time. You guys have a great day, and appreciate you. And thank you again, Leah. I'm going to be in contact, and I'm going to put all of your information here. So it's really easy for everybody to find Leah if you guys are interested in segueing over to get some help with her. And thanks again, guys. Sorry about being late this afternoon. Little tech issues, but I'm glad we got it worked out. All right. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.